Welcome to an exclusive MasterTAAG interview. I am Kian Richardson and I'm joined today by Chef Emily Ellyn. Sorry. How are you, Emily?
I am great. Thank you for having me on today.
No problems at all. So for those at home who aren't aware of what you do, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and exactly what you do as a living?
Yeah, my name is Emily Ellyn. I'm a chef and culinary educator. I work with a lot of brands to develop recipes as well as I travel around and educate, mainly in the culinary world. I also touch restaurants, hospitality, and even catering and events.
That's fantastic. Okay, so what is your first memory of cooking then? And when did you realize that this was your passion? So where did it all begin for you?
Birth.
Right from birth.
Divine intervention, mother's milk. I don't know. I truly gravitated to the kitchen from a very young age. And I can remember being so young and I was an early riser. So I would be like the first one into the kitchen and I pushed our kitchen chairs with all my might to the stove, and it was a gas stove and I just lit it. I was young. I was around 8. Yeah. And I can remember picking up that cast iron pan and there was fresh butter on the counter and flopping it into the pan and not burning down the house.
That's wow. Honestly, I'm 20 years old now. I don't think I've picked up anything cooking related since I was 18. 18 maybe was the first time I did it. Unbelievable. Wow.
Tisk, tisk.
Honestly,
do you want to get married this lifetime?
I've learned since I've worked in the hospitality industry since. I've learned now, but my mum did not trust me at all. So luckily that I do you proud, hopefully, and I've learned now. So there we go. I'll follow in your footsteps, perhaps.
Good.
Yeah. So is there anyone in particular who inspired you to be a chef, or is there a particular motivation you had?
Well, I grew up on a farm in Midwestern United States, so in Ohio, and we raised and grew everything we ate. So like, even when I went to culinary school, I went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. We were asked in class to like dress chickens and like butcher animals. And I was like, wait, they come in packages? Like, it was kind of that epiphany moment. Like, oh, wait, the rest of the world is not having the same experiences with food. It's kind of like, oh yeah. Okay. No, so I was inspired by just growing up in that environment. So my parents were always cooking great food. Actually, my mom was not a great cook at all when my parents met. And she will tell about the first date and how she burned everything and it was a disaster and what have you, but whatever. Somehow they made it through. And my dad, who was always the clean out the refrigerator kind of cook, where he would taste while he cooked, made phenomenal food. Really? So I think, yes. And then along the way, she was inspired to cook and now she's fabulous cook.
Oh, fantastic.
But just having that good food available to you is so important because you don't have to do anything to a carrot. You just brush off the dirt and it's so fabulous. A fresh carrot or
exactly
scallions or whatever,
Absolutely. Is there a meal that your parents have perhaps prepared for you before that you think, oh, that's my favorite, that's something particularly stands out for me? Is there a favorite meal they've made for you?
Well, we had a lot of chickens. Ooh. So I can remember eating quiche and like egg dishes a lot. So we had a lot of quiche, fresh vegetable quiche. And my son, who is 2 years old, has now found Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham book. And it occurred to me, what a part of my being every Sunday was family day, and Dad would cook breakfast for us because he was home from work. And he would make green eggs. And I was trying to explain green eggs or red eggs or whatever in the garden or refrigerator, because he would blend them up and it would be whatever fresh vegetable. And Quentin, my son, is always like, oh, Mom, make me green eggs and ham now. So I egg dishes kind of stand out most because it was really like fundamental family time that
Okay.
Sunday. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay. So I just got a different kind of note here now. Do you think social media channels such as Instagram, Facebook, things like that are changing the way food's prepared? Do you think there's a lot more emphasis on presentation now rather than the taste or the quality of the food?
Yes, to some extent. I'll unpack some of that. That was a lot.
Social media is such a new thing, isn't it? It's perhaps might change the way that people present their food. I just thought if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, it's new and old in a sense because, since the mid 90s, we've just like really started to get into it, social media. And, in my introduction, I kind of was talking about that mainly I'm chef educator, but being that I'm on the television a lot and that's kind of my classroom, I've also used social media quite significantly to teach food. So the aesthetics of food, yes, I think has really been top of mind, especially when Instagram came into play, because that is such a photo focused platform, right? Yeah. And so I think that aspect of social media has really like transformed the food landscape and really kind of gotten everybody keen on what things should look like. Now, taste, I hope taste is not compromised. And I feel as though with these other platforms like YouTube, people are able, or even Facebook and all these like going live on Instagram and Facebook Live, you're able to have like a chef, a trained chef, or even a novice chef come and teach you how to prepare a meal or a dish. I mean, how cool is that? Like we're talking to each other from the other side of the world. And it's nothing. We thought nothing of it, even though we had to figure out the math and, what time zones we're in. But it's so easy to tap into that. Now, from a perspective, from university perspective, one of my assistants, she is dating a chef right now, or a inspiring chef. And because of the pandemic, and he's in culinary school, they are taking a class that he is taking a class right now that I have taught, and it had a lab and a lecture component. And I was asking about what he's learning and what have you. And he's like, oh, it's all online. And I'm like, wait. How can you take labs online now? So there is some kind of like odd disconnect. And I'm very curious. I'm going to have him come and work with me this week and just rack his brain to see what he is really learning in that environment versus like having a lot of hands-on. So, follow up with me in a week or so and I'll see how the universities are being impacted with that disconnect, or maybe better connection, because they can keep rewatching it at that point.
That's true. I found that university, going back over things like that, I found it much more useful than for example, being there in person. You got it once, I might have forgotten this or that. Whereas online, you can, you go back over it again, make notes in it, this, that, and the other. So I think I've benefited from it personally. So perhaps you got a point there. Maybe I think maybe it is a good thing. Maybe we got social media for something like this.
Now you're not berated and like, almost whipped into place like we were back in the day when we had to like come up in the brigade system and have these old timers teach us. And so there's like a different dynamic. Now the generations have changed in the sense of there's like more of a nice kid glove kind of mentality on teaching. Before we were kind of like beaten into submission, like you will learn this. So, the whole teaching styles have changed regardless of social media. So
absolutely, it's all changed completely. Absolutely. Okay, so I just wanted to know, did you feel a great sense of pride every time that you upload an image, for example, of the plates you make, or if a customer uploads something that they've done, that they followed one of your recipes, for example? Do you feel a great sense of pride every time you do that, or is that diminished over the years, or how do you feel about that?
no, I still feel like my motherly sense, just like, oh, I'm so proud of you. Like you did it. And I can even remember teaching in university, I would get these texts of like a roasted chicken splayed out on a plate. And I'm like, oh, they tried it, like, oh, that's so nice. Or I will get notes. I actually really enjoy getting feedback from my followers.
Okay.
Like, oh, did you realize that in the directions you misplaced a sorry, my phone, speaking of social media, now I'm like pinging.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it is everywhere. I'll get like notes. Oh, did you miss a ingredient in your directions or what have you? Like they are reading it carefully,
really?
Like so carefully that they are like editing for me. And I've had, I'm testing the recipes and I have editors test it. And even if we miss like one thing, they're not, which is really? So cool. Yeah. And it is a sense of pride.
It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. At least then you don't have to worry about missing anything or anything like that. But I guess maybe it also might feel a sense of pride if perhaps one person had tried it and not done so well with it and then tried it again and they post the results of before and after. Is that it also gets to pride when you see people improving after what you've given them, the help you've given them?
Yes. And I'm always encouraging my followers and my students to really embrace recipes as a framework. And realize that there is a sense of freedom when you're cooking, even though there is quite a lot of structure that you have to follow in a sense.
Yeah.
If you follow the overall framework, what you're using, different ingredients and what have you, you will get a tasty dish.
Yeah.
It looks like a flop, but it will probably be tasty. And the more you do it and experience it, you're going to get better at it. So when I'm testing my recipes, I will test them after I test the actual recipe that I've come up with. I will start messing with it. Like I will mess it up completely. I will use different fats. I will use different sugars, and I will kind of like start experimenting so that
try and error though.
I try to put little notes like, ooh, honey is a little more viscous. It's not going to work as well as sugar or what, like whatever the scenario is, or add pumpkin. It's the season, or,
Obviously, yeah, it gives you scope for creativity for sure. I worked in the hospitality industry only as a kitchen porter, not quite as impressive as you, but we had head chefs in there and they had the scope for creativity as well. They made a new menu recently. They had to try out all these different things. Oh, does this work? Does this work? No, this is too much of this, too little of this. Tried it again. They held themselves to really high standards. They kept trying again and again and again until they got it right. So I guess, it gives you a bit of scope for creativity. Just keep trying error until you get the perfect thing that you want. Then you can make record of it and keep doing it again.
Yes, and getting feedback from others.
Yes, absolutely.
Your taste is totally different than mine, and you may love it. That's always been kind of like an odd thing in my mind that like, oh, why would a chef, be so, almost like in this elevated position where you can put salt and pepper on the table. Well, I don't know. My 80-year-old grandfather, father may actually need the salt to taste more, or like I don't know.
And people see it in so many different ways, don't they? Yeah, absolutely. So it's up to personal preference. But yeah, that's why luckily I got the chance to try a lot of food they made for free, which is perfect for me. I absolutely loved it.
That's right. Well, yes. And a young male out in the world, we need to feed you.
Exactly.
We want to give you free food, please.
They called themselves feeders as well, so I was not going to complain. It's all free.
Exactly.
I loved it. So I have another question. So would you say, the most challenging part of what you do? Is there a particular hurdle that you found was difficult to overcome? Is there a massive challenge that you feel like you have now overcome, but it was very difficult at the time?
Well, I think a lot of challenges are opportunities. Like I'm one of those like hopelessly optimistic human beings where I don't really ever feel that, my failures are really ever failures in a sense.
Glass half full kind of person.
Yeah, I am. my cup runneth over. And I have always been one of those people that are like, you know, I'll even look at the industry and I'll see potential. And I really believe that ultimately as an industry, I think we are all very creative. I'll speak to the whole, like we're creative, we're hardworking. This is an industry that likes to provide for others, and it's a service industry. So we work from our hearts. So there's not a lot of failures, if you will. Okay. I mean, I've had dishes that are just, you know, like disgusting. Like, what was I thinking? Or I can even remember like being totally out of it and just like measuring wrong and having it be, you know, a disaster, but I've learned from it, you know, or I have other people be my backups, or even in social media. Like, for instance, now there is so much content. There is. So do you fight through the noise, or do you find your niche and then you really just like cultivate that? Like, there's something for everyone out there. It's more of like a collaborative thing. Like, okay, so, you know, you're doing this interview and you're elevating your segment of the industry, and maybe someone will hear about me and check me out, you know, or absolutely. What have you. Yeah. So it's perfect. Like, yeah, I think it's all about opportunities, and you got to really just kind of like change your paradigm. Like, get over it, people. There's how many billions of us here now? Like, there's something out there for all of us. It's not scarcity. It's, you know, you can make.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because my head chef was going on when I was with him. Is like he said cooking is like an art and like an art form. And he's like, yeah, if you've got to take pride in what you do, and if you don't do that, if you don't, you know, try to be the best that you can, if you just chuck something on the plate and let it out, then you've got no place in my kitchen. He said those exact words. And I felt quite inspired by that, actually. I felt, you know, really wanted to do the best that I could. That's something as well that you share then, I imagine, as well, when you're doing trial and error, trying to get the best that you can do.
Yes. And I think we should all take that little nugget of advice and just, you know, thread it through our lives. I mean,
every aspect.
Here we are. I mean, what is our purpose here on earth? It kind of like translates to that. If you're going to gravitate towards a career, and, you know, our careers in society right now really define us to a large extent. So why wouldn't we do our best? Why wouldn't we tap into that creativity? You know, like, just, yeah, let it thrive.
Exactly.
And what's the worst you can do in the you get to eat the mistakes, you hide the evidence. Like, my son's probably like, what is she doing? I'm like, it's not that good. Let me just hide it or whatever.
No one would ever know. Well, we take the flip of it then. What do you feel like is the greatest achievement of your career? What do you look back on as like, I think I have a great pride in doing this. This is what I know. This is my legacy that I leave behind.
I don't know if I've hit my legacy yet.
Okay.
I feel as though, and I've had this thought from a very young age, that once I put pen to paper and I write my first book, then I will have a library.
Okay.
So I feel as though there will be a lot of writings that come from me. Right now, I'm just kind of like living and experiencing, and I think becoming a mother in the last 2 years, and just synchronistically, you know, during the pandemic, which, you know, was a quiet time for a lot of people. It just happened to be like a good time for me to just kind of like come home, like in I guess, internal sense. And then I feel as though once this child rearing, I've gotten a handle of it, then I will go back. I will be like a phoenix and like rise again. You know, like my first part of my life, I learned it. I'm experiencing it. Now I'm kind of like coming home, and then I get to like come out of, you know, out. So I think the legacies will come. I am very proud that I have in my work experience, gotten to teach a lot of people, gotten to travel, taste, and experience such great things. Now I just am getting ready to share it with the world.
Absolutely. So that kind of leads on to my next question there is, what do you want to achieve in the future then? So if you want to write more books, perhaps, then do you want to continue teaching as well, getting to let everyone know how to, start really?
Yeah, I think in the future, as my path has like gotten me here, and I live in a large city. I live in Orlando, Florida. I grew up in like very like a humble setting. I didn't realize like some of the important steps that got me here, from from a geological perspective, or like whatever, like from growing up on a farm to now and appreciating food and understanding it. I think that is like an important aspect that others have not experienced, that was very unique to me and I need to share. So I have it kind of like in my soul that I want to do like raising first generation city slicker kind of book, and like teach people that experience and like really get that out to the public. I want to really focus on this kind of sustainable lifestyle. You can't tell, but I live in a 1940s home. It's one of the oldest houses on our streets. Like, we are in the middle of a city, but I have more fruit trees and edible plants like planted on my postage stamp, and I think like sharing some of that stuff will be very important, as well as I have always gravitated towards this idea of, like on the television, they refer to me as the retro rad chef. I take the old and remix it and make it new. I like to celebrate those old recipes, really tap into like our foundation, tell the history, and then have it grow from there. Okay. I think that's important for people to go back to the fundamentals to learn a little.
So do you somewhat modernize them then in a way, try and change them a bit and make them more modern to go with the times, to look towards the future then?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I do. I mean, I will modernize the recipes so that they're readable, in the sense like your grandmother's biscuit recipe may be like a handful of this and her hand is different than yours, so we measure it. We'll get it so it's up to, like readability. And then I may do I like to do fun twist on things. Like, for instance, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. With us in the States, like, we would all starve as children if we didn't have access to peanut butter and jelly, but, then I make like wine jelly snow cones and put peanut butter powder on them. And I like to do fun little riffs and twists on.
Actually, I think that will appeal to a lot of people, wouldn't it? People like to have a bit of fun with it. Then at least that way it seems a bit more like a social thing. It's a bit more fun rather than something that's too serious. I think it's an easier environment to learn, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And I mean, you can make the basics at home, but then, like kind of elevate it. It just like inspires you a little more.
Oh, exactly. Absolutely. Okay. So, I want to talk a bit about now, what advice that you'd have for chefs perhaps that are trying to break into the industry. So, if some people are, like, for example, they wanted me where I work to become a chef, but obviously I'm at university, it's a bit different. I didn't go down that path. What advice would you have perhaps for people who were in that situation, or about 20, 21 years old, trying to break into the industry as a chef or whatnot?
I think you really have to work in it.
Yeah.
You have to experience it. You have to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty. I got interviewed a few years back for Style magazine, and I can recall that I said something to the extent where, yes, you have to work in it full time for, do a stage or an internship, externship, whatever you want to call it. And get in the thick of things, so you understand like what you're committing your life to. I mean, all of us who've been in the industry have back problems, and there was a lot of failed marriages, and there was a lot of failed relationships because the hospitality restaurant industry, we take care of people during those times when you're supposed to be with families, holidays.
True.
We're not around our families during that. We are taking care of other people's families. So, are you going to sacrifice a home life for your career? Are you going to sacrifice your body because you are standing for long periods of time? You're getting burned. I mean, I have like burns all up my arms. As beautiful and put together as I am, something's happening, and it's hard work, but it is so gratifying on the other side. And then you are taking care of people and you're giving them those experiences. Now, to become like a really good chef, and even if you're younger than 21 and where you are isn't like, it doesn't make sense to like learn bartending yet or what have you, go and become a coffee barista and learn that fast pace experience, or, really get into it and understand it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It definitely helps. I think definitely helps being involved, doesn't it? I felt that when I was there as well.
Yeah. And you've got to read. So my assistant's boyfriend, who was telling me his experiences in university, he's like, oh, we don't really buy books anymore. And I'm like, really? But you got to read still. You got to see what's out there. You got to, even if it's on Instagram and you're looking at pictures and I can remember the Chef magazine. It's not in print anymore, but it was like the sexiest food magazine. It was like Instagram before Instagram. I was on a magazine. We would all like drool over the pages, and it wasn't just like standard what we were taught. You needed a starch with a veg and then a piece of protein. It was like it was garnish and all this stuff. And you just have to like read it in the molecular science and what chefs are experiencing. You got to be in it and work it. And you've got to be out there looking at what other people are doing. And that means reading or researching on some platform.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So when I was there, all the chefs that I can sort of relay what you just said there, they all have burns down themselves. They're all very tired of what they do. They've had a few failed relationships, I've been told as well, and stuff like that, but they absolutely love what they do and they've experienced it, and that's what they want to do. And they like looking after other people, taking pride in what they do. So I suppose that is actually very good advice. Having been in there, I think that they echo what you've said there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very good piece of advice there. Absolutely.
We're all cut from the same cloth. We may look a little different, but if you get into it, there's a lot of similarities in our personalities, and they're usually we're all very creative. We're usually a bit ADHD or dyslexic, and didn't do so well in maybe formal studies, but those hands-on studies we did really great. We're hardworking, we're a bit wild and off a bit, like a little kooky, but I mean, that's what gets channeled, that creativity gets channeled in. So
okay, perfect. Well, in a bit of a different sort of direction now, how much of an impact do you feel the COVID-19 pandemic that we've just had has had on the hospitality industry in North America? Because it might have been impacted a bit differently to where we have in Europe. I don't think the restrictions are quite as strong in America, but maybe I'm wrong. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, yes. In the States in particular, we had a lot of varying messaging. So I don't know if the restrictions were as strict or not, or all over the place throughout this whole, the whole time frame of COVID. States are very individual on their legislation. So, one state away may be very open and still have like a lot of restaurants open. And then another state, their whole infrastructure was crushed right away because they just said like close all kinds of dining hospitality experiences. Right. So, it's hard to talk for all the states, and definitely when we're talking Americas, Canada was different than all the, South American countries. So I will say this, no matter if all the Commonwealth countries had a different experience than us, all of us impacted one another.
Absolutely.
Right? Because our supply chains are so interconnected. I mean, even China was having African swine flu the year before, and that impacted the pork industry. I'm sure that's why in the States we started producing more pork. And then during COVID, we couldn't get the supply out. And they had to like slaughter tons of swine and not utilize it,
really,
and get it to market. So it was every part of the industry was impacted on some level. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not just talking about restaurant and bars. No, you have to think like hotels. Nobody was traveling, or events like weddings.
Yeah.
And big venues like going to trade shows, right?
Yeah.
All of that was affected rather, down to groceries.
Yeah.
We stayed at home more. We were ordering more groceries, but then the supply chain was broken. And so we may not have access to all the supplies. And then prices were getting impacted and fluctuating. So yes, every part of the industry has been touched. Now, because going back to being a chef and speaking from that perspective, man, we are resilient. We're hardworking, right? And creative. And it is amazing who literally stepped up to the plate and what happened. So, I mean, we could harp on the stories of like failed restaurants. I mean, just in my little part of town, we can walk down the street and we can see who's boarded up.
Yeah.
And what a shame. And, but who's buying that space now? At a discount and thriving, and a new business is coming, and new ways to do business is coming. We were just really in the States getting into delivery services and ghost restaurants, this concept of ghost restaurants. And so, maybe that was like a very timely addition to our food industry. Now, because there's different demands and the percentages of like what these services take from the restaurants, it's all going to have to like work itself out. And it is. And, customers, I think as a result, are starting to be more informed on what we do, what kind of food costs we have, what kind of labor costs we have. Our government our government representatives felt as though we needed a lot of bailouts, but not understanding like how to dole out the money properly. And they would, you could apply for these bailouts, but then restaurants couldn't use them because they didn't have the staff anymore, because they had to let people go either for financial reasons or for health reasons. Like, we can't have you in front of sick people. As you know, nobody in the world understood the virus until quite recently, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we weren't vaccinated right away. So everybody was scared. I on an optimistic stance, I will say we will all survive. Have we gotten impacted down to the seed companies, the farmers? Yes, we have. Like, absolutely. It's going to be trying to regrow, trying to work out like, different political political aspects, in the sense like, okay, well, we give people money, but that money's coming from all of us. We're the government, So just finding that balance, understanding it, and like getting a handle on it. There's recessions all the time. There are collapses in economies. There are natural disasters. Ultimately, humans thrive and survive. We just have to like, work together and figure it out. And we will, it'll sort itself out. It's just, it was sad. It was crazy. We're all like learning, right? We're all working from home right now.
Exactly. It's such a massive change, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, who would have thought? And because we're working at home, here's a whole nother segment. All the businesses downtown who, like the restaurants or the coffee shops, even, I think the businesses that were most impacted were these like little mom and pop shops, right?
Yeah.
How can they survive? They survived on a $1 coffee.
Yeah.
From the 30,000 people that traipse through town. They don't have that anymore.
No.
But incredible. Yeah, it is incredible. Our stamina will have us thrive and survive, but it was tumultuous.
Yeah,
it was a roller coaster.
Roller coaster ride.
Yeah. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, someone asked me before when we were in the thick of it, and from the catering perspective, and I just burst out into tears because I could think about all the people who are laid off.
Yeah, so many people got laid off here as well. It's unbelievable. So many people were unemployed. Then we had a furlough scheme, but even then, lots of people left their roles and things like that, and there was a massive shortage then in the end.
Yeah, and we're trying to sort that out too. Like, we have unemployment benefits, so you can tap into that money, and then it's harder to go back to work. And there's this like trying to sort it out, paying people fair wages so they come back, but are patrons coming back to support that? It's this balance.
It's fair, isn't it? Yeah. Another question, it kind of goes from this as well. How do you feel that technology then might impact the hospitality industry? Obviously, there's a massive increase in technology over the last 10, 20 years, but I feel like maybe it has been accelerated by the pandemic, given that we've had to social distance, sometimes we've not been able to go out. So how much of an impact do you feel it might have?
I think we've, like you noted, we're seeing the evolution of technology, and what will also evolve just from, I guess, from a safety perspective. We're going to do a lot of like touch-free technology, so that when you're in a restaurant situation or hospitality restaurant or hospitality situation, you don't have to like touch. There's not a lot of handling of things. There's going to be I think supply chains are going to shorten in some sense and get smarter, or smarter, even more local, like focusing on that. And transport, there's going to be a huge evolution in how we get goods to and from places. I mean, we have, I don't know if the States would have survived without Amazon and being able to, like tick, 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 and have it instantly in one day. Absolutely. Yet, our postal service is collapsing. So like these new transportation systems have to be created. So yes, technology has helped and will continue to help and evolve. And yes, we will see a lot more tech heavy inspirations coming our way.
Yeah. So for example, especially in the UK, we've had a lot of introduction to QR code menus and automated menu services. So for example, on campus last year, when we had social distance, we were allowed inside. The only way that they could open was by scanning a QR code, get the menu, and they brought it out for you. Do you feel like this is something that might stay after all this social distancing and all that's ended? Do you think it's a good idea to maybe keep in restaurants and bars and hotels? Do you think it's a positive for the industry?
I think convenience is always a positive in industries, especially right now with our mentality to work more and produce more. There's a need for that. You kind of had my mind jog to another component, because we did so much convenience, and there was such an explosion in plastics and single use. And I really hope that technology propels our single use items into more sustainable products. Like that would be a great use for technology, because I mean, I even remember we have a store called Restaurant Depot, and it's just like, like every supply that a restaurant needs, from plastic containers to sauce, right? Yeah. And the plastics were sold out like all the time.
Really?
And like I'm trying to support these restaurants, and all I'm getting is like bags of individually wrapped like plastics and stuff. Yeah. And it's like, part of me is like dying, and other parts like, no, you're supporting. Oh, So yeah. I hope technology kind of pushes that aspect of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think a lot of people also don't recycle it correctly either. At least with plastic, you can somewhat recycle it, but some people, especially in the lower earning jobs, if you don't earn so much, you might not care so much about what you do and stuff like that, or care what you're doing is correct. So I feel like a lot of people end up recycling it wrong. It ends up in the sea, damaging, there's the sea life there. It's so sad to see, isn't it?
And it's yes, it is very sad to see. And that is this is a very international subject.
Yeah.
As well, because, different countries have contracts with one another to buy their trash, to recycle, reuse, or just throw it on their land, like it's a money-making deal. And as we have talk about tumultuous, is we have a tumultuous relationship with China. They were the ones who were buying all of our trash.
Yeah.
So like I went back to Ohio to visit my family, and I mean, in the hospitality industry, I hate to say it, but we're drinkers, right?
Yeah.
So you want to partake in some beverages, some alcoholic beverages, and they mainly come in glass. And of course, glass has always been one of those things that is very easy to recycle.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Most of Ohio cannot recycle glass. Nobody will buy it to recycle it.
The nightmare.
Oh, it gets me. So yeah, I mean, there's always this like weird fluctuation of those systems too. Yeah, I'm sure we could go on that tangent.
Yeah. I was thinking also on that sort of say no about wastage in the industry as well. Do you feel like maybe if a QR code or automated menu would allow you to pre-order your food before you get there, it might give chefs maybe a better idea of who wants what on a certain day? It allows them to prepare for it better. Then you might get less wastage in terms of food that's gone out of date because you've ordered too much and stuff like that. Do you think that would be a positive introduction to the industry?
Yes, I love that point. I think that's great. And it's chefs working with their customers or educating their customers on that exchange, as well as you can tell in trends. Like one of the latest conferences that I went to was a catering conference, and we were talking about trends. And, the idea of tapas is so like top of mind because you can get small portions and tastes instead of ordering large meals. And you're starting to tailor your menus to be a lot more streamlined and smarter right now. So there isn't as much waste. The restaurants can't afford to overbuy or lose that food. Absolutely. So yes, I think that's a great point.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and just finally, I just want to ask: are there any tips you have for chefs in Europe? Because obviously it works different in North America. We've been hit quite hard by the pandemic. There's a lack of chefs at the moment. That's particularly even where I'm from, and not many staff as well. So, are there any tips, anything that you give to businesses or chefs in Europe, from your experience in North America, of how to maybe get over this hurdle, how to move forward from this?
I think stick with it and continue to really work hard and use your creativity and foster that service mentality, taking care of your employees the best you can. I think the restaurants who stayed in business and have been the most successful during this roller coaster have been the ones who really just like buckled down and used their energies to help the whole. Like I know restaurateurs like Thomas Keller, or any, there was quite a few Michelin star chefs who changed their restaurant, or they turned the restaurants into food banks, and were feeding their staff. They were taking care of their communities first and foremost, so their communities were strong, so that they could be strong, so that they could continue to thrive and provide. I mean, I think that's really what we all have to do, and it's being committed to our communities. And we will lose some restaurants that we love, but they'll change and evolve. And yes, I will speak to their hearts and just say, stick with it. It's going to be sad. We're going to continue to lose a lot of people, but we're going to also innovate, from QR codes to takeout to dining out more, and social distancing, and just learning more about these different elements that could totally impact our restaurant, our industries. And we'll be more prepared next time when it happens.
Absolutely. I can definitely see signs of progress already, that especially where I'm from at home, there's definitely signs that places are opening up again, people are getting their jobs back. So it seems that there's definitely a positive impact at the moment. It's definitely getting better.
Thanks the Lord. Because I would like to go traveling again.
Wouldn't we all? Oh, I missed it so much. But there we go. There we go. But anyway, we're out of time now. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been really insightful, and I hope the best for your future, and I hope you achieve everything you want to achieve.
Thank you. You as well. Okay, I can't wait, because I get to champion you. You're the next generation. So we get to.
Well, I'm learning. 18 years old, I've never cooked. Now I've been called chef as well by my peers. So there we go.
First steps. Hello.
Yeah, exactly. Step by step, I'm getting there. And hopefully everyone else follows suit too. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.